Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to Financial Issues. It's great to be here with you all today. Back here Monday, August 25th. Good to be here with you all, folks. I'm excited to be here with you. Seth, Udinski, Sam Case, the Studio A team. Hey, we got a busy show today. Good start to the week. Jason MacDowell is going to join me shortly, actually, to discuss an important and often overlooked aspect of your financial and estate planning process, which is simply just keeping your plan up to date. I think that's something we don't often think about. We talk a lot about starting that plan. We don't often talk about keeping it going. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm looking forward to that. Also, the markets, they were just on cloud 9 on Friday, following a blessing from what could be the final Jackson Hole Summit speech from our Lord Father Jerome Powell. We'll see how in just a moment, Sam. It's going to be fun. Also, your questions and comments. Speaking of which, folks, I did want to share something with you that's a little bit different. Our phone lines are open today, 610-363-1110. Phone lines are actually open right now. Here's the reason. We had a great comment last week about Social Security that we are going to address on the air later on the show. I know it's become kind of a running joke almost. My stance on Social Security has certainly garnered some rather strong responses, I think we could say, Sam.
Ruffled some feathers, we could say.
From both sides.
The feathers are now ruffled.
Some people really agree, some people really disagree. I would like to give you all the opportunity, if you would like to come on the air and share your opinion about Social Security. Maybe it's different than mine. Maybe you want to yell at me. Maybe you just want to tell me, well, listen, this isn't, you're not thinking about this in the right way. I want to give you the chance to do that, folks. So the phone lines are going to be open for the whole show, and you're welcome to do that at 610-363-1110. Whether you agree or disagree, join the conversation. I'd love to talk to you about this. Again, 610-363-1110. I thought it would be worthwhile to do this because we've now spoken about this topic, I think, twice in the last several months, and each time it's generated pretty strong responses, with some responses being very opposing to my response to it. So again,
do you dare to reiterate what your controversial opinion is? Just to prime the callers.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it right now. No, it's okay. Listen, folks, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think Social Security needs to go away. I really do. I fully understand that we have people in our audience who are on Social Security right now. You paid into this thing. Sam and I have talked about this before, that I believe it's a government handout system. It's certainly not a handout in the sense of being a charity, but it is a handout in the sense of you pay into it, and then at some point in the future, the government hands out a tiny little portion of it to you and to everyone else who's on the system. I think it reeks of socialism and different things like that. And as we'll get into later on, Sam, there's some things that I haven't said about it yet that I'd like to share as well, just when it comes to our heart pattern when we look at Social Security. So listen, it's a tricky conversation, but I want to invite you to join it. If you've got qualms about what I've said, call in 610-363-1110. The phone number's open. I'd love to talk to you about it and get to hear your thoughts on it. Well, folks, let's open up here. I do want to remind you, please pray for the hundreds of thousands of children today who will be entering public schools, Christian schools, home schools, starting their school years, many of them starting today. I know some don't start until after Labor Day, and some others have actually already started, but the bulk of students start today. Many of our districts started today as well. I have several teachers who started today with their students. So I'd urge you folks, just pray for Christian teachers to be able to shepherd the hearts of their children, even in places where it's not allowed. I think especially Christian teachers in public schools. That is such a tough spot for you to be in. If you're a Christian teacher in a public school, know how appreciated you are as well, because you have a mandate to shepherd these young souls to love Christ, but also many public schools forbid you to do that with the threat of you losing your job if you do so. So pray that these Christian teachers would be able to stand strong regardless, and for the protection of these little ones as well, not only physically, but I think even more so against the dangerous demonic doctrines that are taught in so many of these government-funded institutions. Pray that the Lord would capture their hearts and that they would not be swayed one way or the other by these demonic doctrines. I know many students starting today. Perhaps you're out there, you have kids, grandkids who are starting today. Know that they're in our prayers. All right, Sam, big news to kick off the show was Powell's likely final Jackson Hole Summit speech. What can you tell us about this one, Sam, from Friday?
Well, got the markets pretty excited, right, Seth? You had said that at the opening of the show, and that is because our dear friend, Jerome Powell, gave a tepid, squeamish, lukewarm response to interest rate cuts, saying, yeah, they're probably, likely, maybe coming in September. Here's that clip.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside, and risks to employment to the downside. A challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. our policy rate is now 100 basis points closer to neutral than it was a year ago. And the stability of the unemployment rate and other labor market measures allows us to proceed carefully as we consider changes to our policy stance. Nonetheless, with policy in restrictive territory, the baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks. We will never deviate from that approach.
I don't know if you hear maybe perhaps a backhand comment about President Trump there saying we're only going to look at the data, perhaps reading between the lines, but he could be saying we're not going to listen to Donald Trump about this. So what do you think, Seth?
Seems like that, Sam. Very interesting. You know, as I've previously stated, Sam, I simply don't think Jerome Powell has any choice in the matter. I think this was as close as he was going to get to saying that rate cuts are going to happen in September. Evidently, the markets seem to think that he was just coming out and saying that rate cuts are going to happen. But I don't think he has any choice. I think he has to cut rates. He's not in an easy position because here's the deal. If he cuts rates, his public image as a heroic bulwark against the ever coming tide of the bully Donald Trump may be harmed. Of course, I'm speaking tongue-in-cheek there. I don't think Donald Trump is a bully at all. But there are probably many who see Jerome Powell as kind of almost a hero. He's standing up against Donald Trump. On the other hand, if he decides not to cut rates, it will basically undercut all of his claims, Sam, that the Fed is independent, because we will then begin to realize that it actually does have to do with agendas and feelings and emotions and things like that. I think we would now see what we kind of know the writing on the wall to be, that the Federal Reserve sometimes does make decisions based on personal grudges. Sometimes it makes decisions based on whoever happens to be the Fed chair. Right now, Fed chair Jerome Powell has a tiff, as we'd call it. What would we call it, Sam? A tiff, a tussle, whatever you want to call it.
I like tiff. That might be a good one.
He is sparring with Donald Trump right now. And I have to wonder if maybe that has seeped into his decision-making a little bit. Who knows? So, folks, you know, there is something truly dangerous, I think, to how we see the markets react to this. We'll get to that momentarily.
And that's part of the problem he has to consider, too, is that the markets pretty much have baked this in. They are almost certain that there is going to be a rate cut, if not multiple this year. So if he doesn't do it, that's also going to have economic consequences as well, and wouldn't really make him look like a hero, though he might look like a hero, as you said, in the eyes of some of the left who see him as kind of a vanguard against Donald Trump.
Exactly. You know, Sam, I think one of the big lessons we can get from this is that there is serious danger in investing with your emotions. And we see this right here. I mean, the markets, last week they were waiting with bated breath to see what Powell said. This week, it's NVIDIA's earnings report. So there's always something. There's always something that the markets are looking to hang their every being on. And really, folks, I think
Jerome or Jensen.
Yeah, Jerome or Jensen. Who's going to be the savior? Who's going to be the savior? We already have a savior, folks. His name's Jesus Christ. The wise investor seeks to get in and stays in for decades, knowing that there's going to be turbulence with the news. There's going to be ups and downs, all sorts of that stuff. Sam and I are learning this right now as we're in our early stages of investing, just to stay focused, to not get too bogged down with the numbers and the directions and all that stuff. The wise investor gets in and stays in. And I think that, with a biblically responsible mindset, those two things, that's the recipe for a winning strategy. I really do believe so. So as it sits, Powell, what did we say, Sam? Powell was pensive. He was a little
tepid,
nervous,
lukewarm, squeamish.
Kind of, but all those words.
I was looking up all the synonyms before the show, so those were the ones I remember.
They're all summing up that he's creeping towards a rate cut in September is really what we're seeing. So that's what it's looking like. Let's move to the markets now, folks. Of course, they did react to this when Powell essentially gave investors permission to hope again. The major indices popped. They were just having a party. They made a legitimate effort to make up most of the ground they lost last week, by the way. All three going off, each of them flirting with 2% gains at some point. By Friday's closing bell, the Dow Jones finished just below 2% positive. It did hit a new record. The S&P 500 was 1.5% positive. The NASDAQ also up near 2 full percentage points. For the week ending August 22nd, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 each closed positively. The Dow Jones was by far the most resilient index of the week, finished right around 1.5 percentage points. The NASDAQ was the lone loser last week, but even Friday's gains really kind of erased a lot of that. Was down right around 0.5 percentage point. The S&P 500 finished up about 1/3 of a percentage point. Pre-markets this morning, again, as I said, the next thing that they're focused on is NVIDIA's earnings call, which comes out later on this week. It's going to be after the bell on Wednesday. So they're putting all their hopes there. And because of that, they're feeling a little nervous once again. I'm sure we might see some sell-offs from Friday, but they're feeling slightly pensive, as we said earlier, Sam, a little bit tepid. So the Dow is down 0.3 right now, the S&P down 1/4, and the NASDAQ is down 1/3. All right, folks, more coming on the other side of this break. Jason MacDowell joins me to talk about the steps you need to take to keep your financial plan up to date. Don't want to miss that. Looking forward to have Jason on. We'll be right back after this.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life, and some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Hi, Joe. You're live on Financial Issues.
I don't know a lot about the market and investing, but I've been learning a lot over the years from your ministry. I appreciate that. So thankful and blessed with the new website. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for all the hard work.
Thank you guys so much for everything you do. And for anybody listening who's not a partner, this is the best value out there. God bless you all and have a great day.
Go to financialissues.org to get started today.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Folks, you heard that disclaimer there. Of course, that applies to Shanna, but it also applies to one of our very dear friends who comes on the show once a week, and I have the privilege of getting to interview him this time, Jason MacDowell. Jason, welcome back, brother. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yep. I always look forward to the opportunities that we get to do this. Listen, Shanna has fun getting to do this with you, but you know what? I want some of the fun. Me. So I'm excited to get to do it, brother. We're going to have a good time. Jason, for today's topic, I think it'd be good for us to hear some of your wisdom on the key aspects of setting and also self-examining your financial plan. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that, Jason, because I know for me, I need to hear that a lot to not just set it and forget it, but understand that, hey, you know what? Life happens, things change. People move, your address changes, different things like that. You have children, as you and I both know, Jason, being young fathers. So I'll just open it up for you here, brother. How do we do this well? How do we set the plan, but then to continue to self-examine it well?
Yeah, we're going to go through and, some simple things that even I have to remind myself. And we talk to clients every day about it, but we're going to take a look at just self-examining your financial plan through just looking at your accounts specifically, and then maybe some holistic planning and taxes. And then, of course, we'll bookend it with financial planning just in regards to the estate plan. So that's what we're going to solve for. It's basically, you're passing it on, because while we're alive, we can control things to a point, but also who comes after us and taking care of our heirs also is important, including the kingdom. So
starting with Jason, I'll just jump in here for just one quick second, because I think this is so important for the position that you and I are both in as young fathers who are providing for our wives and kids. This is an act of provision. It's not present provision necessarily, but future provision. I think that's so important. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And great ad.
Yeah.
So simple things with accounts. So we're going to take a look at just the self-examination of just all of your accounts, where they're at. So what are those types of accounts? We're going to look at, your bank account, your credit union checking and savings account. You might have a money market account too. Don't forget those. Sometimes they're separate. And even in some banking institutions or credit unions, a CD account, a certificate of deposit account actually is a separate account as well. It just really depends on the institution. So remember to look at all of those accounts that can have a beneficiary. So we're going to talk a lot about beneficiaries here. So you want to make sure that each of those accounts have the intended beneficiaries listed with proper legal names. Obviously, if you have children and they change names due to marriage, and where it's applicable, sometimes addresses. So the reason for the addresses is with life insurance beneficiaries. If you have life insurance, especially for our age group, as you get older in retirement, you may not need that because you have assets that pass on to your spouse. So that's perfectly fine. But if you have the life insurance, check in on those beneficiaries, especially. So anything that can have a beneficiary, please take a look at that. It's very important.
So that would be any kind of account, pretty much, including life insurance, Jason, right? So even
that would be a policy. Yeah. So the life insurance is important because of the addresses, because some life insurance companies actually mail a check, and some of them will deposit the death benefits into the beneficiary's bank accounts if it's listed there. I focus a little bit more on that specific one, because when you have your executor or someone who's responsible after your passing has to go around and do these things, they need a good checklist, but they also need some updated information. Otherwise, it has to go to where it's listed. So that's a good one to go dig up that policy wherever it's sitting and take a look at it. So,
And then here's just a follow up for you also, Jason, as I was thinking about this. So you and I both in the situation where we necessitate life insurance because, again, we are, if something were to happen to either of us, we want to make sure that our family is provided for. What would be the wisdom in making someone other than your minor children a beneficiary, if that's a person that you can trust to take care of the children? So say, for example, rather than making my 3-year-old son the beneficiary, I make, the person who I've entrusted to take care of my son if my wife and I pass away, I make them that person, that then the money goes to them and then they use it to take care of the children. Is there wisdom in that, or is it better to leave it to the child and have that person be kind of the trustee over it?
Those are good questions for a attorney as well. In the case of if you have minor children, you may have your will establish a trust in that case, and then it's up to you to figure out who the trustee should be from that point. So that's your trusted person, just kind of on the nose there.
Sure.
So that's a good place for the minor. So that's always good, even with your account. If your will does establish a trust, make sure that financial institution is aware of that. In that case, just as the contingent, and that kind of brings me to the line of beneficiaries that speaking to who's first, who's second, and who could be third. So in the lingo, I guess you'd say primary beneficiary is going to be the first one. That's traditionally a spouse, but you can have multiple primary beneficiaries. It could be kids once the first spouse has passed, or it could just be split to some other heirs equally as a primary. So they're the first in line. The second one from there is contingents. It's very common to just have a primary and contingent or secondary with beneficiaries. And in some cases with certain things, I think life insurance policies or other institutions will add a third one or tertiary to it. It's a very specific case. It usually applies normally for the first and the second from that point. So that's kind of a good wrap up of those different definitions of which beneficiary comes first and in the line of that order.
Awesome. What about financial planning with taxes, Jason? How do we do that?
Good question.
Yeah.
We are not we are not tax professionals, as we always say. So
especially not me. Okay. Let's just put that out there. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So a lot of partners and listeners that are actually doing the FISM strategy are doing things on their own. They have things in their control. They might even be doing their own taxes because that is a capability of doing, and that's perfectly fine. In some cases, it might be still important to at least get a consultation with a tax advisor just to go over making sure that your taxes are proper. And especially when it comes to capital gain situations and taxable brokerage accounts, we're always talking about the strategies of, getting money out from the government's control. So if that involves a taxable brokerage account, we're going to want to look at capital gain situations. And then, of course, if you're on Medicare, there's, of course, Aunt Irma that we've talked about so much, and making sure that you understand how IRMA brackets work with Medicare. And of course, IRMA is, it's another tax bracket that can raise the premium of your Medicare in a year if you actually have too much adjusted gross income or modified adjusted gross income. So those are good questions to really ask for those that might be starting on that FISM plan and kind of measuring up how their taxes affect their overall plan. It's a good holistic approach we like to take a look at.
Jason, can I jump in for just a second and ask you, you are not a tax professional, but I'm guessing you probably have wisdom and insight on how to choose a good tax professional. Do you have any suggestions on what would be good things to look out for in a tax professional?
Tax planning. You can ask some questions, especially with leaving money to the kingdom, looking at qualified accounts and reducing qualified money. Those are just qualified money would be in like an IRA, a traditional IRA where the government can change the rules. Now, qualified money could also mean like an HSA or a 529 plan. It's good talking about a tax planning standpoint, but also the kingdom giving aspect. Are they familiar with, of course, qualified charitable distributions? Are they a CPA, a certified public accountant? Those are really the ones that have that advanced knowledge, and maybe they have some experience. You can find one locally in your area if you like to go through the brick and mortar doors and do it that way. Mine personally has always been in a different state than mine, but I've known mine for a long time, and I've been able to work with him for a long time. So really, it could be anywhere. It could be in a different state, or it could be somewhere close where you can actually have that relationship as well. And maybe you like to hand over your tax documents physically. So it's really good. That's a good part that's a good question, Seth, about the consultation and talking with your tax planner that way and kind of feeling them out and how they like to handle this. A lot of times CPAs or tax advisors want to save you money in that tax planning year. We're always planning for the long term. So the holistic approach of self-examination is don't think about just this year, think about the future, your beneficiaries as well. So that's some good questions for your CPA.
Awesome, man. And Jason, I know you guys have also mentioned, you and Shanna talk all the time about the principle that there's a very good chance we believe taxes will be higher in the future than they are right now. I find that wisdom so important. Could you speak to that?
That's right. So taxes being higher in the future, maybe it's not now in the next 4 years, but in the future, we do see a common goal of the government constantly wanting to change rules. That's what they do with the accounts that they can do so. So we like to look at where is the best place for your people beneficiaries to be. Are they on accounts that from a tax planning standpoint? So talking with your CPA about, hey, my beneficiaries are going to inherit a Roth IRA. What's going to happen with that? Is that a good place for people heirs? Hey, I have people beneficiaries on my brokerage account, my taxable brokerage account. They're going to inherit this amount of money. What is the tax implication there? So those are good questions to ask them, especially with the step-up basis. Then, of course, there's always that built-in tax treatment with a traditional IRA. And that's where we at FISM always talk about kingdom beneficiaries and maybe involving the kingdom into your estate plan. So those are good questions there to take a look at. And so if there's a tax consequence, we want to position our heirs to receive the best, but also have the kingdom heirs also be a part of that as well. And those are good self-examining tools of what you want to do. And that might lead us into estate planning here.
Jason, quickly here, tell us just for a moment, so the legal documents that we need, just remind our listeners what they are. I know of a will. What are some of the other ones?
Yeah, power of attorney and medical directive. So power of attorney really works when you're alive. So those are kind of the simple will plan. If you go to any estate planning attorney and you want to say, hey, I want to get some legal documents together, it's always best to have that prepared of what you want done for the attorney to put together, but it's usually just a will, power of attorney, and medical directive. So it's good to review those documents. I know there's some people like to review it every 5 years. Some people don't review their legal documents or even update them until they need to, and it might be a little too late. So that's a good self-examining. Dig those out and take a look at them and see what they say, if they need to be addressed or they need to be updated, especially maybe minor children or now adult children. And then, of course, the last thing is for our wives, leaving a letter.
Yep, that's right,
listing out everything, where everything is good to leave to your surviving spouse or maybe a trustee of where everything exists. What are the accounts? What are you leaving to who? And it's not legally binding, and it's not going to be in the place of a beneficiary or legal documents. It's just going to give a whole outline of what the person who's responsible after you can go look for these things.
Jason, I appreciate that so much, brother. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to put some of that into practice. Folks, Jason MacDowell, always appreciate having Jason on the program. Looking forward to the next time, brother. Hey, if you have to leave us, we hope you have a great rest of the day today, but we do hope you'll stick around for more financial issues coming up on the other side of this break. Talk to you then.
Where's Mom? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
Are you a Christian seeking to align your investments with your faith? I'm Shanna Burt, host of the program Financial Issues. During our program, we share valuable information about the financial issues of the day, including how markets and the economy are moving and how public companies are behaving, helping you to make wise decisions with your investments and the money that the Lord has blessed you with. Using biblical standards, we provide you with valuable financial insight based upon Scripture, making it easy for you to invest in a way that aligns with your values. I can assume that most of you have investments in a 401k or IRA, but what I am sure of is most of you have no clue that the companies in your mutual funds may be funding the LGBTQ agenda, pornography, abortion, the list goes on and on. By listening to Financial Issues, you will learn how to get rid of those investments that are dishonoring God.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today.
My baby was like this big. He was like this tiny little spectrum of hope and this unnamed beauty, in a sense. It was poetic. And I saw his heart beating on the screen. And I mean, I went from, I don't want this baby, it's just a fetus, it's just cells put together, to talking to my child on the screen and feeling really protective and knowing that there's life growing inside. I mean, that sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to mom. I'm a mom.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. Had a great time with Jason in that segment. A lot of great comments there about Social Security. We'll try to get to those in just a little bit here. But before we get to that, let's take a look here quickly, folks. The markets just opened up, and the markets are, as I refresh my screen, give me a moment, bear with me, all in slightly negative territory. Dow Jones is just down about 1/8%, S&P 500 0.25%, the NASDAQ about 0.2%. So once again, all eyes will now be focused on the next big emotionally charged event in the markets, which will be NVIDIA's earnings report on Wednesday. Did want to remind you folks, actually, speaking of specific companies, we had a very successful petition with Tesla. Very, very happy. So many of you signed that petition. And so today we're going to be sending that over to Tesla's front desk, I guess, Sam. We'll send it right to Elon Musk and hope and pray that it gets to the right eyes, that the right people see this, and that the right people are there to respond to this, that they care about this. Maybe we're sending this to people who, might be thinking in the opposite, direction as we are, but seeing something like this might even change their hearts. So pray for that, folks. We're praying, of course, that Tesla changes its ways and we can put them back on our list. If that doesn't happen, though, we're praising God for a successful campaign and praising God for the ability to use this megaphone to do what's right. Whether it brings about change or not, we want to do what's right, be obedient. So that's what we're trying to do.
Be sending out those petitions after the show today. Yeah, so pray I don't get a paper cut on my tongue when I'm licking those envelopes.
Right, man. There you go.
It's dangerous, but I do it for you.
It's dangerous stuff. That's right. Hey, let's see what to look for this week here, folks, in the economy. So Shannon mentioned this on Friday. We have durable goods. That's just showing us the direction conditions with business investment, housing conditions are headed. We'll get the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, which is the PCE number. We also get personal income and spending. That's how the consumer in a consumer-driven economy is holding up, specifically the lower-end consumer. Be interesting there to see that this week. We mentioned earnings season. So again, earnings season for quarter two is really winding down. There's not much else reporting this week other than NVIDIA, but it just so happens that NVIDIA is the proverbial market darling and hero.
It's kind of like Christmas. The year ends with the big celebrations. So earnings season ends with NVIDIA.
Earnings season's Christmas, which, by the way, folks, don't look now, but Christmas is only 4 months away on the dot. Just hopefully you're getting your Christmas cookie jar ready like we were talking about earlier in the year, right, Sam, for your Christmas
Sneaks
gift.
up on you.
That's right. It certainly does. You got 4 months left. But the Christmas of quarter two is coming around the corner with NVIDIA. Monday, so today not much, tomorrow not much. Wednesday we get NVIDIA. That reports after the bell. Thursday we do get Dell and Dollar General and a few others. Friday we get Alibaba. But this is really kind of the culmination of earnings season.
Kind of tough to be Dollar General right after NVIDIA, raising excitement about that.
It's like, I got to follow that. Good grief. So we'll see what happens, folks. You can be sure that the markets, I'm sure, barring some other kind of event that will cause them to move one way or the other, they will be watching very closely when NVIDIA reports its earnings, as it has been driving that tech run-up that we've seen. All right, Sam, let's jump to a question here from a partner. We've got Mark. What's Mark asking?
Hang on just a second. There we go. He says, Mark says, I've been a partner for a few years, but honestly, I don't pay too much attention. So first of all, Mark, thank you for your honesty. I really do appreciate that. But he says, I had to sell most of what I had a couple years ago to get a mortgage. I had ORMP for several years now, and I believe I bought it while I was on the buy list. However, I don't see any information on it now on the website. I've lost most of what I invested, so I was wondering if something happened and I just didn't see it, or if somehow I made a mistake and sold it.
Well, Mark, thanks for your question. We did issue a sell alert for this company. This was part of kind of a broad sell alert in the healthcare sector. This was back in April of 2024. So again, April 2024 sell alert for this company. It was for technical fundamental reasons. So you can go and check out that alert if you go to the alerts page. Just type in the holding that you had on the alerts page, and that should take you right to that broad sell alert that you saw there. So thanks for asking that, Mark. Do appreciate that a lot. All right, let's get to the chat rundown here, folks. We have a lot of you in the chat there. Good to see so many of you, Claude and George and Jason. Jason, who you just heard on the show there. Always great to have Jason. Robert had a great question here. Dan had professed that fixing Social Security was very easy to do. He never elaborated on how. Any idea what Dan had in mind? Robert, that's a great question. I do not know. I remember Dan talking about this. Sam, can you think
No, I have scanned the archives of the videos, and I found clips of him mentioning it, but I never found what his actual solution was.
Absolutely. Eddie, I really do appreciate your comments there, brother. And, we might get to, some of these here. Eddie, you were asking, I understand your perspective based on your age and future. I shared some of my perspective in the chat, and I appreciate that, Eddie. Your question, how do you suggest we get there when there's a society that depends on the Social Security program? And Sam, we might as well go into it right now. Here's the solution, Eddie, and it's pretty simple. And I put this in the chat there, but I'll share this with all of you. We need one generation that's willing to bite the bullet. We need one generation that's willing to say, I will pay into this thing knowing that I'm not going to get anything out of it. See, you all paid into it with the promise that you would get something out of it. And many of you, I think, Eddie, you're one of them, many in our audience as well, in your 60s, 70s, are now receiving Social Security benefits with the thought of, I paid into this, so now I'm getting it back. I'm not trying to shame any of you with this. I understand you paid into it, you're getting it back. What I am saying personally, and I know Sam feels the same way, is that I am willing to be the generation that pays into it and never gets it back. The reason why is because I don't want my children to have to pay into something this foolish, this socialist, frankly, this stupid, when we're talking about a government program, a government solution that was created by really one of the most dictatorial presidents in our country's history, named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, back in 1935. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want my children to have to bear that tax burden, because here's the deal, folks. If Social Security is sticking around, the taxes will go up. They have to go up. Sam, we had that article, I think it was last week, talked about, I think the numbers right now, 12% is the Social Security tax. It's supposed to go up to 16% if the program's going to stay solvent, right?
And if I remember the number, it means that lifetime earnings for those just entering the workforce will be dropped by $110,000.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So the question that you have to ask, folks, and this is the tough question, who's going to bear the burden of this? It's going to be my 5-year-old daughter, 3-year-old son, and 5-month-old son and their generation. I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to stand for it. I am okay to be the generation that pays into this foolish system for 25 years and then never gets anything back. That's okay with me.
Well, that's already the expectation.
Yeah,
I'm looking at surveys right now. It's about 40 to 70% of millennials and Gen Z think they're not going to see a cent of Social Security.
Absolutely. I don't expect to receive any of this thing, folks. So what I'm saying is let it be me. Eddie, the answer to your question is it ends with the millennial generation. Now, unfortunately, a lot of millennials are bent towards selfishness. They're bent towards, I'm paying into this. And it's not even a bad thing. You paid into it. You got it back. That's great. We need more millennials, though, who are willing to be completely selfless and willing to do this. I really do believe that. And look, it's not an easy thing to do, okay? It's not something that is going to come easy for a lot of people. And I really do believe myself, Sam, others like us are a tiny little remnant. The reality of it is it's not going to go away because, Sam, as you said, it's a government program. It's a government program. These things don't go away easily, you know? So, Eddie, to answer your question, I think that's the solution. I really do. I think the solution is you need one generation that's willing to say, I'll pay into it to stop this thing. I'll pay into it long enough to cover the people above me. And then there's going to be a kill date. I said that in the chat also. I think you need to have a kill date for this thing, whether it's 15 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. I think that's the solution. Listen, it's not going to be easy. As Sam, as you said, the phrase "bite the bullet," that's a reference to a historical term of someone who's getting their arm chopped off, and the bullet is essentially their version of some kind of drug to numb the pain. I'm willing to do that.
Bite down on a rag, a bullet. You're in so much pain. Right. You got to bite on something.
And I'm not trying to be a martyr.
It's not fun,
folks. Good grief! I don't want my children to pay into this. That's the truth. I don't want my children to pay into it. I don't expect it, so it ends with me. That's my solution. I appreciate it a lot, Annie. I apologize for that rant. Didn't mean to go on it there, but here we are. We got the ag report coming, folks.
But it does clear things up. You're not saying people are currently dependent on Social Security have to give that up. That would be a terrible idea. And that's not what you're saying.
Do that. It has to end with a generation. I'm willing to be that generation. Folks, we got the ag coming up. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. More financial issues coming up after that.
This is Craig Howgard with your financial issues ag update for August 25th. Friday, Pro Farmer tallied up the results of their week's crop tour. The tour had shown that most states' yields were above last year, and that was reflected in the final numbers as Pro Farmer pegged the 2025 national average yield at 182.7 bushels per acre. Now, this is down from the 188.8 bushels per acre projection from USDA's August crop production report. But it's worth noting that recently the Pro Farmer numbers have come in 3 to 4 bushels below the USDA's final number. We had December corn finish today 1/4 cent lower at 411.5. Soybeans rallied as the EPA provided clarity on the small refinery exemptions. We had November beans a little bit higher as a result of that. They are up 2.5 cents as they finished the day at 10.58.5. The wheat trade was gradually weaker throughout the session as traders were unable to confirm the rumors that China had been buying U.S. wheat. On the international front, rains are helping crop development in Argentina, which added to put some more bearish pressure on the board on Friday. We had Minneapolis December wheat unchanged at 5.90. $5.90, while Kansas City was a nickel lower at $5.21. Chicago dropped by 2.5 cents, settling out today at $5.27 Cotton futures were pulled higher by supportive outside markets. When the session finally ended, December futures were 59 points better, closing at 68.01. Livestock futures had a real strong finish to the week. We had October live cattle futures $3.15 higher as they closed the day at $237.87 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle were $4.65 higher at $362.67 per hundred. Now, this was generally driven by the August cattle on feed report, which was released on Friday, and it showed a 2% decrease in total cattle on feed inventory from the previous year. This decline is part of a trend of a year-over-year declines, continuing to reflect a tight cattle supply situation across the major cattle feeding regions in the United States. We also had October lean hog futures $1.27 higher as they ended the day at $91.20 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures closed lower for the third consecutive session. We had September futures 12 points lower at $18.27. This has been Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Hi, Robert. You're live on Financial Issues.
I appreciate all that you and Seth and all the staff do for helping us.
Thank you, brother.
I would never have done anything like this without you guys being such a help.
My husband and I were talking yesterday, and I said it's kind of fun, to get in there and work your portfolio, and we're up in our entire portfolio. So keep up the good work, guys.
Invest without compromise. Go to financialissues.org to get started today.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. And on top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support Preborn. The donations that you give actually make a difference. Last year, 59,000 babies were saved because of what you have done and with your generosity.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Appreciate each of you folks. I just put a question in the chat. I'll pose it here to you now if you're not on the chat. For those of you who are pro-Social Security, maybe you're on it right now, or maybe you're not on it, but you're still for the idea, you're waiting for it, you're approaching that age. Let me ask you an honest question. Is it a good system right now? And if it's not a good system, what's your solution? I'd love to hear it. Is it a good system, the way it is right now, where we went through the numbers, folks? The numbers are clearly not enough to support someone. It's basically a side hustle, where the younger generations get taxed and need to increasingly get taxed more and more to keep this thing alive. Is that a good system? If you think
if you're working while getting Social Security, you actually get punished for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, right. If you make too much money, then you're getting punished. Is that really a good system? If you think it's a good system, obviously you're gonna we agree to disagree there. If you have a solution for it, tell us in the chat, or you can call in 610-363-1110. Let's do this, Sam. Let's get to, here's one potential solution that we had. Albert sent this message in. I think this is really good. And this was actually what sparked this conversation today, folks. This is the reason why we wanted to go back to Social Security today, because Albert had a great comment for us. So Sam, why don't you give us Albert's there?
Yeah, Yeah, Albert's got a lot of numbers in here, so we'll have to see if my dyscalculia gets the best of me here, but we'll have to see. He says, Seth, I'm aware that you've taken heat on this subject before. I have little respect for the plan as a Social Security, but I'm also aware that without it, due to the lack of saving and investing, that some people would have nothing in retirement, but it's also hard for me to see it as a handout. That's something that, Seth, you've called it before, and you've taken quite a bit of heat for calling it a handout. So there's an agree to disagree there between you and Albert in this comment. But he goes on to say this: if a person that makes $40,000 for 40 years with your part and the employer's part, that would be the match, that's a little over $400 per month at 8%. That would equal $1.4 million, which at 4% yields $4,800 per month, which will probably beat the $1,200 to $2,800 you might get from Social Security. So yes, the plan stinks.
Albert, thanks for your comment, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, all those numbers Albert's mentioned there, folks, basically, if you have that money set aside where you can invest it in the market, he mentioned that 8%, that's an 8% return, which is actually that's a little bit of a conservative number, if I'm understanding right, Sam, at least based on the past 10 years. There's no guarantee, but if you're going by what the last several years have gone, you'll get a good chunk of money that you can live off of. That number, the 4,800 he mentioned, was for 25 years. So you can live off of that. That's probably more than double what you get from Social Security. Albert, your point stands well. The plan certainly does stink. Let me explain the handout thing one more time. I think that is important. It's not a charity. I don't think it's a charity at all. I think there are government charities. There's welfare. There's things like that. I think those things have to go as well. I think there's better ways to do that. What it is you are paying into it, and then you're getting it handed out back to you at a fraction of what you paid into it, because there's so many, millions of people who are getting this as well. That's all I mean by that, is that it is a government handout in that sense. Not a government charity, but it is a government handout that is socialist by nature. Folks, I
think what people hear when is a handout is they're thinking that you're saying that they're bad, they're a moocher for taking it.
Exactly. Please don't hear me say that, folks. I don't believe that you're mooching off of anyone for it. I fully understand as well that you paid into it. Now, we have to be clear here. The money that you paid into was not money that was stored up for you. You paid into it so that the generations 20 and 30 years older than you could live off of it. You paid for them. Multi-level marketing scheme. Who is now paying for you to be in Social Security is me and Sam. And if we get there, if the system's still alive, my kids will be paying for me to have Social Security. I'm not okay with that. That's the point. I don't want my kids to have to be burdened with that. I think it's a unfair burden, as the word fairness goes. I also think it's an unjust burden. I don't think it's a good burden either, because it reeks of socialism, all that other stuff. You understand, folks. So the question of, is it a good system? I'll go back to what I said earlier. I really do think that it's going to take a generation that is going to say enough is enough, but it has to be enough people. That means we also have to get people in position who are willing to say what no politician, to my understanding, Sam, has been able to say in the last, I don't even know how long, probably since the program's been there, which is saying anything remotely close to, we're going to end this thing. If a politician says that, people will freak out. They'll freak out. And listen, I get it.
The closest I can think of, you had George Bush, who was talking about privatizing.
He talked about
you also had Paul Ryan, who has a lot of issues, but this was a decent goal of his, was to change or reform Social Security, and he was pilloried for it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So I do think, folks, privatizing could be the solution. I do think, though, more than that, you just need a generation that's willing to do the work, that's willing to get people in, and that's willing to pay into it, knowing that they'll never see any of it. I think that's really kind of how it goes. Again, if I never see a cent of it, I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. I don't expect to see a single cent of it anyway. And look, here's the deal, folks. Even if I do get some of it, the trajectory that it's going, it's probably going to be a little more than chump change by that point anyway. So I certainly can't live off of it. I'm going to need something supplemental. That's why Sam and I are investing right now. That's why we're doing the financial issue strategy. We're doing this right now so that when we get to that point, we can live off of the money that we worked for. I really do think that is the way to go. I understand not everyone's in that situation. You might be in a situation where you need it. And I totally get that. And I want to, exhibit grace towards you for that. Nonetheless, it doesn't remove even your situation, which might be legitimate, does not remove the fact that this system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And it will hurt our children. I promise you. It will only hurt our children and grandchildren. I am against hurting my children. Financially, physically, spiritually, whatever it is. I'd rather free my children from that. Let me say one more thing about Social Security as well. So many people, and I've read this in the chats, I've heard so many of you say, I'm owed this. I paid into it and I'm owed it. And I think we have to be very careful about that, folks. It's so easy to get selfish to say, I deserve this. I really do. And I'm not, look, even me saying that, I don't want to, cause you to send nasty emails. If you got an email to send it to me, please don't send it to Pat. Send it right to me if I'm the one that you're, frustrated with. But we can so easily start to think about ourselves instead of thinking about the people around us. That's all I'm trying to say. Additionally, let me say this also. Many were promised. You were promised that it would be there for you. The question I'd ask you is, who promised that? Maybe you heard it from parents, maybe you heard it from grandparents, but it goes all the way back to the government made the promise. Am I right on that, Sam? The government promised that they would take care of us when we were in our old age. They were the ones who started this.
Yeah, but the problem with that, though, is that it's not like the government said, hey, I have a promise for you. Do you want to take me up on the promise? Yeah. We're all kind of drafted into this system.
We're just drafted into it. Yep. We were all it was just kind of like part of the water that we drank. Absolutely. But I would tell you,
so that's why people say they're owed to it, because they do pay into it.
They do pay into it. Right. And that's the problem. That's the point we're trying to make here, folks, is this is a structural foundational problem that begins with our ruling government. They're the ones that have to make the changes ultimately. Now, we hold them accountable. We're their bosses. That's why we need to get the right people into office to be able to make these right changes. But I will say this to you also, folks. Be very on guard about listening to the government, believing that the government tells you the truth and has your best interest in mind. They probably don't. Please be very, very careful about that. I say this as a loving rebuke. If you took any history classes and you came out of your history classes thinking the government has my best interest in mind, you weren't listening. If you came out of history class thinking the government always tells me the truth, you weren't listening. Please be very careful. I had the privilege, folks, I get this. I had the privilege of listening to and talking to Dan Celia every single day for 4 hours a day for an entire year. So I get that. I got it beaten into my brains, this thing. Don't listen, don't trust the government. You should assume that the government will lie to you and they will not have your best interest in mind. Here's the point I'm trying to make with all this, folks. If you have common sense, which I know our audience does, you would agree with me, at least the system we have needs to severely be changed. And I'm glad that's why, there has to be a better way. Albert's pointing that out here. I think he's exactly right. And so many of you have agreed with that as well, that there has to be a better way. So thank you for hearing my little soapbox rant there. I didn't mean to go on a soapbox with this, folks, but I did want to share all of that with you to tell you, look, I don't care about myself with this. I genuinely don't. I don't care about keeping Social Security for me. I want a better world for my children and for my grandchildren. I want a better country for them. I want a more godly country. I want a country where Christianity is the law of the land for them. I want one where the gospel flourishes and grows. And I know that you want that as well. And I want one where they're not burdened financially from a socialist governmental system. That's really what I want for them at the end of the day. I think it'd be wise for us, folks, to close our show here on the stewardship verse of the day. Titus 1:7 says, for an overseer as God's steward must be above reproach. He must be not arrogant or quick-tempered or a drunkard or violent or greedy for gain. This is a great verse, folks. It's explicitly referring to a very specific type of person. This is the overseer. So this is an elder of the church. According to the qualifications in 1 Timothy 2, this can only be a godly qualified man. So if you're not a godly qualified man, you cannot be an overseer of the church. However, these principles still apply to every Christian, that we all must strive to be not arrogant and to avoid a quick-tempered spirit, to avoid drunkenness, to avoid violence, to avoid greed. And instead to exhibit the fruit of the Spirit, to love Christ with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, to be faithful stewards above reproach for the glory of God. Boy, it was a good show, folks, and it was a busy one for sure. I apologize. I'm sure we saw a lot of chat comments come in there that I missed, so I'll make sure to get to those. If we have time to get those on tomorrow's show, we'll try to get to them as well. But yeah, folks, I hope you can remember all the lessons that we learned today. It was a good show. Excited to be with you. Some things we'll be keeping an eye on this week, of course, the NVIDIA earnings call, as well as those numbers in the markets. The PCE number comes out, all that stuff. We can be sure we'll be here trying to make some sense with you for all of it. If you have questions, be sure to reach out. Again, you can send me an email directly. If you didn't like anything I said about Social Security, I'd be glad to talk to you more about it. Seth@financialissues.org. God bless each of you. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards of what God has given to us. See you next time.
we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.